from Somerville.
Greetings from Somerville. I am your host, Michael Somerville, and we're going to start today with another audience question that was emailed to me. What was your worst bombing on stage? That is a popular question. Unfortunately, I do have an answer for it. You have good shows and you have bad shows, but then you have some that really don't go well. When I first started comedy, I sent out a tape. I had like an 8-minute tape of my stand-up, and I sent it to agents, managers, anyone I could find an address for who might look at it. And I wound up getting a college agent off of it. It's kind of a smaller time agent, and he had a lot of relationships, though, with colleges in Pennsylvania and Penn State satellite campuses and a whole network of schools out there. And he took me on and got me a job. He sent me a contract, and he said, I got you a show. It's from 8 to 9 p.m. on this date. And I said, and it was $1,000. I couldn't imagine $1,000 to get paid to do comedy. It was more money than I could even fathom. Might as well said $1 zillion. That was incredible. But the show was from 8 to 9 p.m. So I said, who else is on with me? And he said, nobody, that's you. And I panicked because I did not have an hour of comedy. I had 8 minutes, and that was the tape that I sent him. But rather than tell the agent that, I decided I had 4 weeks to get ready for this show. That was my mission. I was going to put together an hour show in 4 weeks as basically a very new comic, which any comedian will tell you is not possible. But at the time, I said, all right, let's do this. And I spent the month writing stories and coming up with little extra bits and thinking, all right, I'll do some crowd work. And I in my head, got to the point where I said, I think I can pull off an hour show here. And I get to the show, and it's a rough setup. It's in their rec hall. There's a pool table, it's a large room, there's a snack shop, and then there's about 50 seats set up for comedy, and only about 15 people come to the show. So I get up there, and I'm all rearing to go, kind of a cheerleader. Let's go, rah-rah, how's everyone doing? And the kids are just staring at me. They don't really want to be at a comedy show. I think they just don't want to study, so they thought they'd come and sit for a bit. And I'm getting nothing out of the gates. I'm saying, hi, how's everyone doing? And getting nothing back. So I go to my show. I'll go, okay, let's go to that material, and that'll wow them. Well, I tell my first joke, and I get nothing. And I make the rookie mistake of speeding up to get to the next joke. I go, okay, well, that joke didn't work, but this one's going to get them. And I speed up to the next joke, and that doesn't work. Well, I rifled through, I had maybe, I thought, 15 or 20 minutes of really strong material. I rifled through that in about 9 minutes. I just, getting no laughs, speeding through it, and now I'm panicked. There's a clock on the back wall, so I'm facing this clock, and I can see it. The show started at 8:05, and I was supposed to go from 8 to 9, so I already decided, all right, well, I'm only going to 9. I'm not going to 9:05. They started me 5 minutes late. I just got to get to 9. Well, it was only about 8:14 at this point, and I was basically out of material. So I start doing crowd work. Okay, what are you studying? How do you like your roommate? All these questions I had prepped in my mind. That fell apart about 10 minutes later when I asked the kid what he was studying, and he said, you just asked me that like 5 minutes ago. So I was getting no laughs on my crowd work, but at least it was conversational. Well, it's about 8:25 at this point. I'm out of material, and I'm out of crowd work. And so I just start trying to talk about the themes of my comedy. Well, boy, snooze buttons are crazy, aren't they? Don't you guys agree with that? Finally, people start leaving. And that is probably the most painful thing you could have at a show. It's one thing to bomb or not do well, not get laughs. But when people decide they physically do not want to be there any longer, that is just a rejection on a personal level. And I see this one kid leave, and I just, my face must be bright red, and I just go, yeah, you probably should go study. Just a Hail Mary I throw out there, just really heckling the kids at the school, which is probably not the smartest move, but it works. All of a sudden, everyone laughs, because I guess it was a kid who wasn't doing that well in school and was failing out, and it really gets a response from the audience. And so he kind of laughs and says something, and then I keep going, and kids are telling me, yeah, he does need to study. So that bought me a little time. We were going back and forth with that, and then the kids were saying, well, he doesn't study, and they were almost turned into like their own little discussion groups in the thing. He doesn't study either. So at this point, it's about 8:35, and I'm just thoroughly out of stuff. And I have nothing left to do, so I just start chatting again with the audience, and these kids at this point, I think, felt sorry for me. They're like, we don't know how long he's got to go, but he just looks like a beaten man. And I get the show to about 8:50, and I decide that's it. I got to get off stage. I have nothing left to say. The few kids who had stayed, they just weren't laughing, and I think they wanted to leave, and they were just being polite. I already decided in my head that I was not going to accept a check. I wouldn't take any money for the gig. And then the worst part, I wrap up, I say goodnight, and the student government kids, their job per the contract is to take me out to dinner after the show. So they come up to me, and I don't think they wanted to go, and I didn't really want to go, and they said, do you still want to go to dinner? That's all they said. They didn't mention the show. Do you still want to go to dinner? And I decided absolutely, because I was going to be the most entertaining, fun guy ever at dinner. So we go to an Applebee's, and I am just holding court. I'm making jokes, I'm zinging, and I'm pretty good at dinner. I'm social, I'm funny, just on stage having to do an hour of comedy when I don't have an hour of comedy. I'm not that good. But at dinner, I was great. I was making them laugh. They were smiling. A few weeks later, the report comes back from my agent, and he calls me up, and he says, so what happened out there? And I'll deny. It was good. It was good. Good time. Everything's good. Everything seemed good. And he said, well, they didn't really care for your show, but they said you're amazing at dinner. So I got my money, and thankfully that summer I had some up and down shows, but he had booked me a bunch, and that summer I really credit with not only me developing material, but getting very good at crowd work, because I had all this stage time and I didn't have enough material, so I had to come up with crowd work, and I really honed it and got pretty darn good at that, which helped me moving forward as a host and as an MC of things. But that was probably, when I think about it, my worst show ever, and one of my first shows, so it's up and up from there.
Is there like cursing on this, or does it matter? Or do you like to keep it a little bit more?
I try to keep it not cursing. I feel weird telling people not to curse if that's what you are and that's what you do.
It's funny because I don't curse on stage, but I have very foul mouth in real life.
It's funny. I've had a couple people, 2 interviews so far. People were cursing, and I'm always like, I feel like the school mom. I'm like, oh, I don't want to tell them not to.
Well, I know like you're like sort of audience, you don't really curse, so you kind of want to cater to your audience.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Right.
I don't curse on the podcast. If you are that type of person where you feel the need,
I'll rein it in. But if I drop something every once in a while.
All right, hello everyone. Here we are in a Radisson. Where are we? A Radisson? Radisson Hotel in Hartford, Connecticut.
Mediocre Hartford, Connecticut.
The skies are appropriately gray, and everything looks cementy and drab. And this is what it's like to be a road comedian. I'm Michael Somerville, and my guest today, and there, by the way, is the air conditioning, which we've decided we are going to leave on rather than be uncomfortable for the purposes of sound. We are just going to have an AC in the background once in a while. My guest is Lori Palminteri, the lovely Lori Palminteri.
Hello.
That pretty much sums her up right there. Lori and I actually were doing stand-up this weekend in Hartford, Connecticut, in the lovely City Steam Comedy Club. So we're on the road together, which is always a treat. She's one of my favorite comedians. But that's not actually why I am talking to her today. One of Lori's passions, hobbies, interests?
Yeah, all those.
Is surfing. She grew up, well, let's just get to it. You grew up in Long Island.
I grew up in Long Island on the South Shore, in a town called West Islip that was nicknamed White Islip because of our lack of diversity. But we're super close to the bridge in Robert Moses Beach, so we had a little boat growing up, so we were always going to the beach. Okay. And at first we boogie boarded for years, and then kind of like the natural next step was to try surfing, and obviously it looks like so much fun and so cool, and we're like, yeah, we're gonna start surfing now. We're like teenagers.
We being what, friends or family?
Me and my brother, but some of my friends too, and my dad started when we started. So
really, you're a surfing family from Long Island.
Well, he had never surfed before. And he's in his 40s, and he's like, all right, I guess I'm just gonna learn with my kids.
Now I'm fascinated by it because I think surfing. I grew up in New Jersey. We have the Jersey Shore. There's a little bit of a surfing scene there when you can find,
there are waves in Jersey.
Yeah. Well, quote waves. I think 3 feet or 5 feet. What's the smallest wave you can surf on?
probably like 2 foot, I guess.
Is that right?
Yeah, you could
a 2 foot wave?
You could surf really small. If you had like a really long board, especially.
That sounds adorable. A 2 foot wave.
Well, that's what you would learn on. Ideally, is like a 2 foot, maybe 3 foot wave.
All right. Well, I want to get to all of this. So you grew up in Long Island. I don't associate necessarily that with. I think of Southern California. I think of Hawaii when I think of surfing. But there is just like you say in Jersey, there's a community. There's a people that do it.
Yeah, there's a lot of people, especially when I started. I don't know, surfing got really hot around that time. I think like that movie Blue Crush came out, and like
Yes.
like Kelly Slater was just like so like it just blew up a little bit around that time. I mean, it's such a hard sport that people drop out all the time because it's brutal.
Yeah, I tried just once in my life. It was a bachelor party, and we were down in the Outer Banks, and well, it was a bachelor weekend, I should say. It wasn't, we were no longer 21. We were getting a little older. It's not that long ago. And we thought it would be really cool. We got a house in the Outer Banks for 3 days, and we were going to, just have dinners and all sorts of fun stuff. But one of the things everyone thought would, what if we took surfing lessons? Like we learned to surf wall more. It's really, really hard.
Yeah.
Like you can't just go and stand up on a board.
No, and one of the toughest things is just paddling.
I agree with that.
People always, I'm like, no, you're gonna be lucky if you even get out there. The paddling is so rough sometimes.
It's exhausting.
It's so hard. It really is. It's so difficult that and even it's such a different muscle. I remember one time my brother and I had brought out my cousin who was a state champion wrestler. Couldn't be in better shape.
Right.
And we took him out surfing one day, and he could not keep up with us paddling.
Really?
And we were just my brother had really both scrawny little kids, and we were laughing so hard, just like paddling around and making fun of him that he was so tired.
I love it.
Because it's such a totally different like muscle that you're working on.
I can believe me. I remember the paddling alone was that we wound up just sort of like lying on our boards and talking out and not that far off the shore. Now, what is you mentioned longboards, shortboards? I always hear that. So what's the difference? What do you use? What is there?
A longboard is like 8 feet or maybe bigger, and that would be like ideal for small waves because and those are easier to stand on. I mean, some of those boards are so big that you would stand on without moving, almost like a stand-up paddle board, which is getting
So it's more stable and
yeah.
Okay, what do you use?
I use Retro Fish, which is a shortboard. So there's like an area between shortboards and longboards called fun boards, and those are like. And they're like 6 to 7 feet, I guess. And those are, those are like ideal for big waves or small waves, but kind of in between.
Gotcha.
A Retro Fish is kind of a fatter board and wider, but then it has a nice fishtail, which is like a triangle. But those boards, those are my favorite thing to surf because I don't surf big waves. I was like grew up on Long Island. I'm not used to big waves.
Right.
But that board is perfect for me because it's easy to catch waves on, and it's easy for me to maneuver. Whereas a shortboard sometimes like a real like tiny shortboard is harder to catch waves, but a longboard I have like no control over. Like I can't
really?
like I can only go like straight. Like
Yeah,
I just can go down the line, and I'm like watch out, like I can't turn this. Whereas a Retro Fish I can maneuver it a little bit better.
On for the ride. Well, what are the times of year? Do you go year round? I mean, imagine the water gets pretty cold.
No, I usually in New York I'll go May to October, maybe November. It depends on the water temperature, not the air temperature.
Okay.
Because like September, October is great because the water temp and the air temp are like the same.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it takes much longer for the water to cool off than the air. But I mean, it's been such a warm season now that I'm hoping that the water will stay warm. We had such a good September in the Northeast. I mean, obviously the hurricanes were devastating to a lot of parts of the world, but every surfer on the Northeast had smiles on her face.
Is that right? All the hurricanes?
The waves were. I mean, all September there was just amazing waves.
Really?
It really was. It was unbelievable.
So because of all these hurricanes that were elsewhere, wow.
And that's one of those things where if somebody's like, "Is there surf in New York?" I would be like, pick up the Surf Journal. That's doing like a whole expose on like Northeast from all these hurricanes because their waves were so.
Oh,
good.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's what I wanted to talk to because I'm one of those idiots who's like, you can surf in New York, and just I do not know a thing. Is there a community then? Do you know like other surfers out there? Is there a regular spot?
Yeah. I mean, I still go out east most of the time because I'm from out there. So I surf a lot at Gilgo or Robert Moses, a couple of... It's funny because Robert Moses used to be the worst place to surf. And Gilgo is always very consistent.
Why?
But after...
Why was it bad?
There was just no, like, sandbars out there so that the waves could break.
Oh, okay.
And then after Sandy... that it just changed the whole beach and like the bottom of the water, so like there were like sandbars, and ever since Sandy there's been good surfing.
Really? Oh wow.
Yeah, that was another thing where we were like, well, all this destruction, but we have sandbars now at Rock Moses, so we can surf here.
Surfers are only the secretly happy people.
About all these tragedies that are happening.
But do you know other surfers out there? I mean,
yeah, well, most of the surfers that I know are like other kids I grew up with when we would go out to the beach and see them. So, but yeah, and there's some people who you do see like regularly. There's this one guy who kayaks. Ocean kayaking is insane to me because if you wipe out on a kayak, that really hurts. Like that can knock you out. But this guy's, I mean, he's got to be in his 70s. He's like this old guy on this ocean kayak. Always has a giant smile on his face, surfing the waves on the kayak. And I remember one time I was like paddling for a wave and I saw he already got it. I didn't want to cut him off, so I cut him off so he would like drop in on somebody or on a wave, which is kind of a dick move. So I pulled out, and then afterwards he's come smiling, paddling back, and he was like, "You could have dropped in on that wave too. Let's just ride it together." I was like, this guy's my favorite person on the planet. Like, and I saw him out there I don't know his name or anything. I've exchanged like 6 words with him. But I always get like, whenever I see him out there, I get so happy. I'm like, I love this guy.
That's my guy.
This guy is the best. He just has life figured out.
And also now you've told me some younger kids once in a while will chat you up.
Yeah. Well, when I'm wearing my wetsuit in the water, I look like I'm 15 years old. Like I'm really like, I just look like a little kid. Like my hair, and it makes me laugh sometimes. So on the occasions where I do get hit on in the water, it is almost always by high school kids about 10 or 12 years younger than me. And this past summer, these kids were talking to me, and, you know, they were nice kids, whatever. We were just talking about the surf. And they were talking about going to a party, and they invited me to this party. And then they were like, "Oh, how are we going to get booze?" And I was like, I think I might know somebody who's 28 years old.
That's amazing. High school kids are inviting you to a high school party.
Like, if there's anything I want to go to less.
If they found out you're over 21, they would be even more popular. Oh my God, she's going to get us both.
There have been a couple times where I like revealed my age, people in the water, and they're like, seriously?
Yeah.
I'm like, I know, I look very young in this wetsuit.
It's a good thing. There are worse days. What about non-human forms in the water? Do you ever run into sharks or animal? You know, that's always been my fear. I always, the ocean.
Of course.
Ever since Jaws, that was it.
I've seen sharks 3 times when I was surfing. Once in New York, twice in Florida. I've seen dolphins way more times, and that's always scary at first too, because you see the fin, and your first thought is, "Oh my God, a shark!" But the way like a dolphin swims, they kind of like hump, so you can kind of see whereas a shark is just straight, and they kind of go up and down.
Okay.
The shark I saw in New York was pretty small, probably. I remember its dorsal fin was not that big, but it might have even been a sand shark. Like, they were sharks up and down the shore all day that day. A ton of surfers coming out saying they saw sharks.
Okay.
The Florida both times were way scarier. The first, we went to Cocoa Beach one time, my family, to basically go surfing there, and it was really disappointing because the waves sucked.
Okay.
And then the one day the waves were good, there were several bull sharks in the water. And we're like on the pier and you could see them, like their shadows. And we're like, oh man, we're so disappointed because we just want to go surfing. The waves are good. Nobody's in the water.
Except the sharks.
Nobody's in the water except the sharks. So the day goes on. I don't even know what we did. And then it's later in the day.
You just not go in then? I mean, you see sharks, you just don't go.
Yeah, we were like, we're not going to go in if there's the sharks. Yeah. But then later in the day, we didn't see any more sharks. I went back up on the pier, and you could kind of see far. Like I said, the water's blue, so we were like, all right, there's no sharks. Maybe we'll go back in.
Yeah.
So we go back in, but and I'm not usually thinking about sharks when I'm in the water, but this time, yeah, I'm like a little bit like cautious, and I probably caught like a couple waves, and then the next thing you know, like down at the end of the pier, just see this huge dorsal fin, like a foot high, maybe bigger. It's so big that curling a little bit at the top.
Oh.
And then the shark kind of like turned on its side, and it was so fat, like my arms would not be able to fit around it. And you feel like Jaws, that like zooming in thing.
Yeah.
And I just immediately turned, and you're supposed to not like panic or splash a lot, because that's like a sign that you're an injured fish, and then they're more likely to attack you.
Okay.
So you're supposed to like do paddle 1, 2, 3 glide. 1, 2, 3. Allegedly. So that's what I'm doing. 1, 2, 3 glide. 1, 2, 3. Hoping that a wave will just get me into shore. And I get into shore, and almost everybody on the beach is standing up because they were like, "Oh my gosh."
They all knew.
Yeah, they all saw it from from the beach. But my brother and my dad and this one other surfer stayed in. My brother refused to get out, and my dad didn't want to leave my brother in there alone.
Oh, man.
And then my brother got out of the water, and he called me a
Oh, jeez.
for getting out of the water because I saw an 8-foot bull shark.
Yeah.
But it was funny because like the next day we were surfing, and there was a little stingray, and he was all freaked out about the stingray.
Oh, man. Yeah.
I was like, it's so cute, the stingray. And then, like, a year ago, my parents recently moved down to Florida, so my dad and I went surfing at Jensen Beach. And Florida is actually not great for waves. They do have a lot of waves, but the winds are always killing it there. But this one, once again, it was such a beautiful, like, perfect day. And we're just waiting. We're having such a good time. And the next thing I know, I see something really big and move really fast through the water.
Oh, wow.
And I just looked, and it was once again, I'm pretty sure it was a bull shark, because they're more popular in the shallower water over there.
Uh-huh.
And I guess it was attacking a fish because I saw its tail go up and spin.
Wow.
And then it literally, the water's crystal clear blue that day, swam directly underneath me and my dad.
Oh.
And we just looked at each other, and we're like, let's get the
Yeah.
But then I don't want to take my eyes off of where the shark was going, because they could, a lot of times, I think, the kid's sensitive, they're being watched, but we saw its fin come back up and turn back near us, and then there was a wave coming, and in the silhouette of the wave there was a second shark.
Oh, man.
That was small.
That would be my last day surfing. That would be it for me.
So we went in, nobody else got out of the water, and we told the lifeguard, we're like, yeah, we saw 2 sharks out there, and they're just like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, there's sharks out there.
Yeah, that's where they live.
And then we went back in like 20 minutes later. We're like, all right, I guess nobody's getting bitten by the shark, so we'll just go back in.
Now, is the bull shark, I don't know what that is. Is that one that would attack humans, or?
Yeah, I think it's the tiger shark is the most dangerous, then great whites, then bull sharks. But bull sharks, I think, are most likely to bite you, but the least likely to kill you. Like, they're more like bite a piece of you off.
Okay.
And not finish you off.
Now, if I'm mistaken, sharks don't generally, they don't like humans. They don't bite them on purpose. Like, they don't want to eat a person, right?
Only like 6 people a year die from shark attacks.
Right.
It's very low.
And it's not like my understanding is they wouldn't feast on us. That's not what they like. That's not what they're looking for. It's more that they either mistake us for something else, right?
Sharks are kind of lazy. Like they're kind of scavengers in a way. Like they have the power and the ability to hunt almost anything. But if there's an injured fish or something, they're just gonna go eat that.
Yeah.
But the one thing that did scare me was during one of those Shark Week episodes where they showed what a seal looks like from underwater and what a surfer looks like, and it almost looks identical. Even scared, I was like, I can't even tell the difference. Yeah. That's pretty horrifying.
I remember that, yeah. And I actually swim from my back. I had back surgery, so I try to swim somewhat regularly, and I'll swim in the ocean sometime. And I was like, I must just look delicious to these. I mean, these just nice jovial Somerville swimming along there. I gotta look like a seal.
I'm more afraid of jellyfish. I tell people that all the time. I'm like, jellyfish stings hurt so bad.
They're
so much more common. I'm like, I've never been stung by a Portuguese man o' war, but that scares me too, especially here in Florida. Portuguese man o' war are like related to the jellyfish, and they kind of look like almost like these purple bubbles on top.
Yes.
But their tentacles go down like 7 feet, and they're really fine. And people, if you get stung by it, it's like a 3rd-degree burn. It's insanely bad.
Wow. Yeah. It just sounds badass.
It sounds
Portuguese man of war. That's like that's the toughest guy in the ocean right there.
Yeah, those things are terrifying to me. If I saw one of those in the water, I'm like, oh, because you don't know where the tentacles are, because they're so fine and basically invisible. Where if you see one over there, you're like, oh, these can must be right under me.
It can zap you up, man. Oh man. Well, speaking of swimming, I've been working a lot in one of your favorite places, Hawaii.
That's one of my favorite places.
Yes, yeah. You I mean, you even wrote a blog about it.
Yeah, I wrote a couple blogs about Hawaii.
Now, you grew up in Long Island, but had the chance to visit Hawaii at one point, right?
My sister moved out there with her fiance, who had a job opportunity at the time. So she lived in Oahu for a year and then Maui for a year. So I went both places for like 10 days.
And surfed?
And surfed. And
tell me,
it was amazing.
Tell me what you loved about Hawaii. It's the most gorgeous place in the world, isn't it?
The most gorgeous place in the world. Go there. I tell everybody, I'm like, they need to go there. It's ridiculous how awesome it is.
Yeah.
And the surf there is amazing. And Long Island waves or New York waves are hard to surf because they're very steep and they close out a lot, which means like the wave just crashes and there's no line to surf on.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Hawaii, I felt like such a better surfer there because the waves are easier to catch. It's like you would surf longer on the wave. I mean, I've surfed Hokapika. Might be saying that wrong because all the places are hard to pronounce. But that place there's an outside break, which is the further out break, and usually that's bigger. And then there's an inside break that was smaller, and I like the inside break because I'm a little bit of a pansy. But on the inside break, and everybody's so happy. Like, some people have dogs on their board. This one guy's running a longboard, and he had triplets.
Serious?
Yeah, and they were probably, like, 7 years old. Just triplets, all Indian style, one in front of the other, and this dad would, like, catch these waves. It was, like... It's like out of a fairy tale. I was like, what is this place? And then the sea turtles are, like, come up right next to you.
How do you even get kids on just sitting on a board?
Well, that's a longboard, so they could balance. They're just sitting.
And they all swam out on the board together.
Yeah,
you're right.
It's crazy. I was like, where is?
Sounds photoshopped.
And there too, there'd be times where I was about to drop in, but somebody else was on it, so I'd pull out. And then people would be like, "Oh, you should have just dropped in." I'm like, people would have your head in New York.
Yeah, is that right? Drop in meaning.
Yeah, if you cut somebody off on a wave. But the thing is, out there, the waves are just. There's so many waves that it's not as competitive, or like you're like, oh yeah, if you don't get this great wave, there's gonna be 14 more great waves in the next 10 minutes. So just wait for it.
There's plenty for everyone.
Oh,
so it does remind me.
Nice.
I grew up in Jersey, learned to snow ski in the Pocono Mountains on a little hill, and then you go to Colorado and get real skiing. You're like, oh my god, like this is fun.
Yeah.
And if you can learn, I imagine on the small tough waves of New York, all of a sudden it's like Christmas morning when you're out in Hawaii.
It was so nice. Yeah, I miss it all the time. I guess if I went to Hawaii before I did stand up, I wouldn't move there. I really would. I was like, any place I've ever traveled. I'm a born and raised New Yorker. I love New York. But every place I traveled anywhere, usually by the end of the week, I'm like, I just want to come home.
Right. Just get home.
I need that New York pace and attitude, and I'm done with this place. Hawaii was the only place where I was like, I don't think I want to leave.
And you do strike me as someone who actually would be happy there. A lot of people say that, I could live in Hawaii. And then I'm the same way. When you grow up in the Northeast, it's something about the energy of the Northeast. It's tough to imagine being anywhere else. But Hawaii, you strike me as someone who would do well there. I know some people who have moved and taken a job opportunity or something. I'm going to live in Hawaii. And after a year, they're like, I got to get out of here. Because it is isolated and it is far, especially if you're from the East Coast. It's a 6-hour time difference.
It's far.
It's at 6 at. You want to call a friend from home. You realize it's midnight in New York and you can't really, So but I think you'd do well there.
I would. If I was a writer that could work from home, I'd be like, I'm going to buy a shack in Hawaii.
Absolutely.
It'd be a beach shut-in.
There's nothing wrong. I was telling you that Mick Fleetwood from Fleetwood Mac did exactly that. When they were starting to pop as a group, they took a break after a tour. He went to Maui and just fell in love with the place. And I think he has 2 houses there now and a restaurant. It's called Mick's on Fleetwood. And on Fleet Street rather, and it's he plays there once in a while. But I was like, what a way to go, just to have. Obviously he has some money, but just to be able to relax and go to Maui as your little just relaxing place,
Another thing I love about Hawaii is no mosquitoes, really.
No.
I never got bit by mosquitoes. And I'm the type of I get bit by mosquitoes everywhere I go. Just brutally. I'm just one of those people that they, seek and love. And I always have, a million mosquito bites. And sometimes they blow up on me, too. It's it's brutal. But, yeah, Hawaii, never wore bug spray, never got bit once. I think this is great.
That is true. And they constantly have that, the trade winds coming through, so it keeps it, nice and cool. And I think it keeps all the bugs moving. And Yeah.
I mean, they got their, they have their cockroach problems, and they have those, like, really deadly centipedes, which I did not see.
Oh, really? I wish you hadn't told me this.
But yeah, they have, like, some sort of deadly centipede there where, like, you can't get bit by that.
Really? Okay.
It's really disgusting because centipedes, ugh.
Really?
Yeah. I can't believe you never heard about that when you went there.
No. I did hear about last time I was there. They had something. It's like a rat worm or something. It's called, and it was getting in all their produce, and that scared the heck out of me. I was just trying to start a diet and eat more vegetables, and then I was like, "Well, not if it's gonna
these rat worms.
not if it's gonna be unhealthy." But yeah, again, growing up in the Northeast, the Jersey Shore was what I went to for the beach, and then the Poconos was a mountain, and then the first time I was in Hawaii, and you look and you say, "That's a mountain."
Those green mountains that's just ridiculous.
Yeah. And that's what an ocean looks like.
Yeah.
And the water is gorgeous. And
I rented a car when I was there, and my sister was yelling at me the whole time. She was like, "You can't keep looking at the mountains while you're driving the car." She's like, "Just let me drive the car." And I was like, "All right, fine." Like,
yeah, please, exactly.
Because I'm completely like not paying attention to the road. I'm like, "Wow, look at that over there."
But it's
and look
true.
at that over there.
I'll send pictures home to my parents, and they keep going, "You're a wonderful photographer." And I said, No, it's nothing to do. You can't take a bad picture there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's where they shot Jurassic Park. I mean, a lot of those scenes from Jurassic Park. Yeah, and you're like, "Oh, this is real." Like,
I was playing the John Williams Jurassic Park soundtrack in the car.
Were you really?
All the time. I love Jurassic Park.
So your ideal life then, if money's not an object, you can live anywhere, do anything. What is your setup?
I would live in New York, but like then I'd live in Hawaii for like January, February.
Perfect. A New York place.
New York place, writing gig,
some writing.
and then anytime it gets cold, I'm gonna leave and go there.
I think that's a solid life plan. I think will there be a guest room where I can crash?
Yeah, you can go crash in the guest room.
Awesome. Well, Thank you so much for taking the time, for educating me a little more about the surf world, which I knew nothing about. I don't think I'm going to join you anytime soon surfing, but can you watch? Is it a spectator thing? Does anyone ever come watch the surfers?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that interesting to watch because I'm not that good. But yeah, if the waves are good,
that actually sounds more fun to watch someone who sucks.
When the waves are big and I'm not going in because I'm too scared, I'll just go watch the guys who are really good and like ripping it. Like this, it's always entertaining.
Okay, yeah. Well, they have in Hawaii when you go to a bar. Normally at a bar, there's sports on TV.
Yeah, they'll just play surfing.
Nothing but surfing.
I know, and their news too. I loved it. I was like, oh my god, they play surfing on the news.
Surfing on the news, and then also just, especially when you're growing up in New York City, just so relaxing their news. Like the first 3 stories in New York were arson, a grandmother was murdered, and something else. And then you go to Hawaii, and like the lead story is like the volcano fence, it needs new work done, and then and here's a guy who went surfing, and
then they're like, look at this children's surf competition.
Right. Exactly. You're like, this is much better for me before I go to sleep. And they all wear the Aloha shirts, which is my favorite thing.
They're all about those shirts.
Yeah, even that's like considered a nice look. Like their politicians will go, like our politicians wear a suit or something. Yeah. They run around in those Aloha shirts. I was like, I could live like this. Well, Lori, thanks for your time. We're gonna get ready to tell some jokes tonight. And is there any a hello or a goodbye that surfers use? Is there any phrase? Is it hang loose? Or?
Not really. I mean, there is a lot of surf lingo that doesn't make any sense at all. They just sound like it. Sometimes even I do it. That's when I hang out with my surf friends. But yeah, no, not really.
All right. Well, then we'll just see you later. Take care. And thanks so much for listening to Greetings from Somerville. Please subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, and listen to all 3 of my stand-up comedy albums for free on Spotify, Pandora, and SiriusXM. I'm Michael Somerville. Have a great day.